All right, so when we do the embossing, the reason Versamark works so well is because it's a nice sticky ink. The other thing that we can use it with is Perfect Pearls. Now these are just really, really fine mica powders that have a binding agent put in them. Just to make sure that your powder is all the way to the bottom, it's always a good idea to tap them before you open them. Sometimes it gets stuck in the threads of the lid, and in that case, you end up with a bunch of powder on your desk that ends up being wasted. So we can stamp with our Versamark on a piece of paper, and then we can dust the Perfect Pearls on it and get the image of our stamp, and it's going to be nice and shimmery. So there's a couple different Perfect Pearls. There is a metallic, there's just a color, which is cappuccino. This one is pewter, and then there's ones that are called interference. Now the interference are the ones that work best on black. This here is the same exact interference one on white, and you can see it on the white, but it definitely has more impact when you use it on the black. So here's how you use it. Let's put these cards to the side, out of the way. So I've got my pieces of paper here already cut to size. I'm going to put these to the side here, and you're going to want to work on a piece of scrap paper. So I'm going to take my stamp. I'm going to ink it with the Versamark ink. There happens to be a hair sitting on it, so let's pick that right off. And we're going to stamp it. Make sure that you've got nice pressure here. And then lift it up. So because we've got the Watermark ink, it's kind of hard to see where everything is, but it does have a bit of a shimmer. So I'm going to dip my brush into the powder. I'm going to tap the excess off, and there are deer right in here that I'm going to make the brown color, and there's a couple birds up in that sky there. So that's all I'm doing with the brown. For this one I'm going to do the silver. Don't really need to clean my brush off between colors because there's so little on it by that time that it's not going to do anything. So all I'm doing is putting some powder on my brush, tapping the excess off, because you can always add some more, but if you have excess powder that ends up being on your scrap piece of paper, it's going to go in the garbage. You can't reuse it. So best to use less and have to add more. A Swiffer cloth is going to be your best friend with this technique, because once you've got all of the stamp image covered, you use the Swiffer cloth and it takes all the excess that's not stuck to your stamped image. Now there's one more step that we need to do before we can start assembling it to a card, but I'm going to ink the next one first. So we're going to ink the stamp. So for this one, I'm going to use that interference green that I said works much better when we use it on black, but I'm just going to show you. It's exactly the same technique to use it on the white. Once again, I'm going to put some brown on those deer because they would look awfully silly if they were green. Tap the excess off. And then I'm going to put the green on. I didn't tap enough off, so I've got a bit of brown in my trees, but that is totally okay. There we go. So you can see some of the green there, but it's not bright. When you go and use the interference colors on white, they're very, very subtle. And so many people don't realize that they work best when used on black cardstock. So inking my stamp for one last time. Stamping it down, make sure that everything's gotten some pressure so you get a good image. And then once again, let's do those deer brown. Oh, I had a little bit too much powder, but that's okay. And now let's do the green. Look how much better and how much brighter those trees appear on the black background. And that's the thing with interference. Anytime you see interference colors, you can get wax paste, you can get paints that are interference. You're gonna have a huge difference between how they look on black and how they look on white. Okay, before we go further, I'm gonna close these containers. And then I need to use the Swiffer cloth on this one, and I realized while working on this one that I didn't do it on this one, so I need to do that. Make sure all the excess is taken off. Now here's the thing, if we were to leave these pieces like this, the ink would dry and then you'd kind of be able to rub the powders off, but there is a binding agent in them that is activated by water. So I'm going to leave them on the scrap here. I'm going to mist them with water. It just needs to be a light mist, but you do want to make sure that it's all covered, because wherever you don't get water, it's not going to seal. So that needs to sit and then dry completely, and then we can assemble our cards. So I'll be back once they're completely dry and we will put those cards together. Okay, so those are dry. I'm going to set those to the side so that I have some space here to use to put my cards together. So I'm going to do the first one, the one that had the pewter mica powder, Perfect Pearls. I've got a mat here already pre-cut. I'm going to glue that to the card, and I know I want it a little bit higher. I want to put a sentiment below it. I have one picked out that works perfectly, in my opinion, with this image. And now we glue this piece down. Oops. Making sure that it's straight. There we go. So I've got a little sentiment here that says walking in a winter wonderland, and we're going to put that here right below. You could put it in the center if you want. I like to put it below and a little bit to the side. And I just tilt my block just a little bit just to make sure to get a good impression of that sentiment. So that one there is done. Set that to the side. Now we're ready for the next one. There's my glue. A lot of these colored cardstocks have printed or textured sides and solid sides. You choose which side you like. Often I'll use the textured side out. Sometimes I decide to put the flat side out. It's really personal preference, no right or wrong. Some people like the texture, some people don't. All right, center this one here. This one I'm going to leave just as is. I'm not going to put a sentiment on this one. So I will tuck that one to the side, and let's put together our last one. So I've got some dark green cardstock for my mat for this one. See how I had it far too close to this side? It's super easy when you've got liquid glue to just shift it over to where you want it. All right, there we go. And I've got a different sentiment for this one. This one I just put, it's your birthday. Now I happen to have felt my finger go in the ink, so if you're paying attention and you feel your finger go into the ink while you're inking your stamp, make sure you clean it off, because it will transfer over if you happen to touch your lovely white cardstock base, and we don't want that. So there we go. So 1 card, 2 cards, and 3 cards. Very simple but super effective technique that looks stunning.